All right, today we are diving into the story of one of the most, shall we say, intense figures in all of Hindu mythology, Parashurama. Now, he's an avatar of Vishnu, sure, but he's not the kind you might be used to. Think less peace and preservation and more pure, righteous fury. He's basically a divine instrument of justice, a cosmic reset button for a world that has gone completely off the rails. At the very heart of this whole saga is a really terrifying question. The warrior class, the Kshatriyas, their whole job was to protect people and uphold dharma. But what happens when they get drunk on their own power? What happens when the protectors become the predators? That's the crisis we're looking at. And that's the crisis that literally called Parashurama into existence.
So to really get what's going on, we got to take a quick step back to the avatar who came right before him. Vishnu, in the form of the dwarf Vamana, had just sorted out a major cosmic imbalance by humbling the great king Bali. He put the heavens and the underworld back in order. But in fixing that problem, he accidentally created a brand new one down on Earth.
And into that new power vacuum crept a totally different kind of evil. See, the big demon threat was gone. For a while. But humanity's own protectors, those Kshatriya kings, they started to abuse their power. They got arrogant, started endless wars, and began oppressing the very people they were supposed to defend. The whole system was just broken from the inside out.
This is where our story really kicks off. With the birth of a boy who wasn't just born, he was forged into a weapon. And his origin story, it's not a happy one. It's a shocking, brutal test of loyalty that would define his entire life.
So Parashurama's father was the great sage Jamadagni, and his mother, Renuka, was seen as the symbol of utter purity. But one day, just for a fleeting moment, she has an impure thought. That's it. When she gets home, Jamadagni senses it, and he is consumed with a blinding rage. He turns to his sons and gives them an order that is just unthinkable. He tells them to execute their own mother.
As you can imagine, his older brothers were just paralyzed with horror. They refused. But the youngest son, Rama, who we'll soon know as Parashurama, he doesn't hesitate for a second. Without a word, he just picks up his axe and does it. And in that one horrifying act, you see exactly who he is. He's a perfect instrument of duty. Absolute, unwavering, and honestly, terrifying.
Now his father is so pleased by this obedience that he offers his son a boon, a reward. And what does Parashurama ask for? For his mother and brothers to be brought back to life with no memory of what just happened. But he knew, even then, that his path was different. He heads into the mountains, performs these incredible penances to Lord Shiva, who is so impressed that he grants him a divine axe, the Parashu, and teaches him the art of war and how to channel the destructive fury of a god.
So, armed with this new power, Parashurama comes home. But that corruption of the Kshatriya class we talked about, it was about to show up right on his doorstep. It all centered on a powerful king, his overwhelming greed, and one very special cow. This one event, it's the spark that's going to light a fire that consumes the entire world.
And we're not talking about just any king here. The bad guy in our story, Kartavirya Arjuna, was a legend in his own right. He had 1,000 arms, a gift from the gods. This guy was so powerful, he'd once captured the demon king Ravana. Yeah, that Ravana. So he's the perfect embodiment of Kshatriya power and their growing arrogance.
And the object of this king's desire? It was Kamadhenu, the divine wish-granting cow. She was the heart of the hermitage, providing everything they needed. She could literally produce a magnificent feast for an entire army in a blink. She represented purity, divinity, a kind of wealth that had nothing to do with gold.
So one day, King Kartavirya and his whole army stop by the hermitage. Jamadagni, using Kamadhenu's power, serves up this incredible feast for everybody. The king is blown away and his greed just takes over. He says something like, "That belongs in a palace, not some little ashram." When the sage refuses, the king just takes her by force, wrecking the place on his way out.
When Parashurama gets back and finds his home destroyed, he hunts down the king and kills him. You'd think that's justice, end of story. But it wasn't. That one act didn't end the conflict. Instead, it triggered a cycle of revenge that would explode into a generational purge, one that would completely reshape the world.
The king's sons wanted revenge for their father's death, so they went back to the hermitage. Parashurama wasn't there, so they unleashed their fury on his defenseless father, the sage Jamadagni. They murdered him in cold blood. And that was the point of no return. Parashurama comes home to find his father's lifeless body. And his grief just transforms. It becomes this cataclysmic, world-ending rage. His personal loss is now a cosmic mission. And he makes a terrible vow. He's not going to rest until he has completely purged the world of the entire arrogant, corrupt Kshatriya warrior class. This was no longer about one king. It was about the entire system.
And he was not kidding. His vow was no empty threat. The legends say he circled the entire Earth 21 times. 21, hunting down and eliminating every corrupt Kshatriya he could find. This wasn't just a war. It was a generational purge, a relentless, systematic eradication that went on for years.
To really get a sense of the sheer scale of this slaughter, the scriptures talk about 5 great lakes, known as Samanta Panchaka, and the story goes that Parashurama filled them with the blood of the warriors he killed. It's a grim, powerful image of just how total his vengeance was.
So after this bloody campaign, after his vow is fulfilled, Parashurama's story takes another incredible turn. His job as a destroyer is over. His rage is spent. And he transforms from this agent of vengeance into something else entirely, an immortal teacher, a guru for the ages to come.
At the urging of the sages, Parashurama finally puts down his axe, and to atone for all that violence, he performs a great sacrifice and gives away every single piece of land he conquered. He renounces any claim to the world he just reshaped, and he retreats into the mountains to live a life of penance.
But his story doesn't end there. Parashurama is a Chiranjeevi, an immortal. He keeps showing up. In the next age, he confronts Rama, Vishnu's next avatar, in a famous scene where he basically passes the torch. Later on, he becomes the martial arts guru to the greatest warriors of the Mahabharata, like Bhishma and Karna. And they say he's still meditating today, waiting for the arrival of Kalki, the final avatar, because he's supposed to be his teacher too.
And that leaves us with this profound, really unsettling question at the core of his legacy. Parashurama restored balance, yes, but he did it through unimaginable violence. His story forces us to ask, is extreme action, even brutal chaos, sometimes necessary to fix a system that's deeply corrupt? Is a force of pure destruction sometimes the only way to create a new order? There's no easy answer, is there? And that is what makes the story of the Avatar of Fury so absolutely timeless.